And one of my favorite parts of the job is meeting so many exceptional young people who apply through our office to receive a nomination to one of our nation's service academies. So tonight, I'm really excited to, allow you all to ask some questions and get to know some of you better. You're going to hear from representatives from each of the 4 service academies that require a nomination for attendance, and you'll have a chance to ask them questions after their brief presentations. So I also want to talk a little bit about the process for our office, because I know a lot of folks have had questions about that. So applications will be due to our office by November 1st. And if you go to our website, ross.house.gov, you can find all that you'll need for that application, or you can call our office and talk with one of our staff members named Jackie, who can help you with this. So we'll be reviewing the applications after November 1st, and we'll be in touch with folks selected for an interview. And those interviews will be taking place on December 2nd. So go ahead and pencil that date in. That's the date that we've selected. If we have issues with that, please reach out and we can accommodate. So we'll be submitting nominations mid-December, at which point we'll then be notified of appointees on a rolling basis. And hopefully we'll have a reception in the spring where we get to see all of our nominations and appointments. So as the program goes on, if you have a question, you can drop it in the Q&A chat box that should be at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to that later on. And so just make sure to put those questions in. So now I'd like to introduce you to my boss, Congresswoman Deborah Ross, who has prepared some remarks for you this evening.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Deborah Ross, and I am so glad that you are coming together to learn more about our service academies. It is one of the honors of being a member of Congress that I can recommend people from the next generation to all of our service academies. And this is an opportunity to learn from service members in your community, to ask a lot of questions, and to see where your interests lie. There is no greater service to our country than being willing to serve in our armed forces. And we have amazing people who have worked with my office over several years to get you the information you need and to make recommendations to me for who we should put forward. Use this opportunity to explore your options. Have your family get to know some of the people in our area who have served our country so well, and plan your future. Again, it's my honor to be your Congresswoman, and I look forward to seeing all of the fantastic people we can nominate.
Thank you, Congresswoman Ross. I'd now like to hand it over to Lieutenant Colonel Brian Doyle, who is on our board, who helps us to determine our nominations. And he's going to give you a kind of an overview and maybe tell us a little bit more about himself as well.
Thanks, Caroline. As Caroline said, I'm retired Colonel Brian Doyle, 1991 graduate of the Air Force Academy. And in addition to being a graduate, I've worked with over 200 North Carolina students as an admissions liaison officer for the Air Force Academy. So I've had the opportunity to see behind the scenes of what it takes to earn admission and to succeed at the academies. As you probably know, attending a service academy is a tremendously unique experience compared to a civilian university. And beyond that, each academy has its own unique experience. So we're going to start today by sharing some of the common features of the various service academies. Still very different than a civilian university. And then reps from each of the academies will describe what makes their academy different from the others. So first up, we'd like to show a brief video with an overview of the academies, and then I'll be back with more detail.
The Air Force Academy at Colorado Springs, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, the Naval Academy at Annapolis, the Coast Guard Academy at New London, and the Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point. These are America's service academies, the 5-pointed star. Each year, thousands of cadets and midshipmen enter our nation's service academies. They come from all walks of life and bring with them a variety of experiences. The common thread is to be challenged at the highest levels and serve our country in the most noble of professions. Cadets and midshipmen at America's service academies accept a lifestyle that is unique and demanding. Though they differ in terms of their history and missions, the military academies have more in common than most people think. The service academies all offer a rigorous 4-year program. Their main focus is on developing leaders to serve our nation in peace and during conflict. Every cadet and midshipman receives a fully funded education, including tuition, room and board, and health care. And upon graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree, they are commissioned as officers in the uniformed services. Each academy is rated as a top undergraduate college. All offer majors in engineering, math, science, and the humanities. When cadets and midshipmen graduate, they take with them lasting friendships. They forge lifetime bonds under the intense pressure and the high moral and ethical standards demanded by our service academies. They are prepared to rely on each other to get the job done. Our academies are not only focused on providing a first-class education, but on training and leading. Cadets and midshipmen are a part of a very special team, America's team. These are the young men and women we turn to in order to maintain our national defense. It's a big job, but these academy grads are very well prepared. We look for well-rounded candidates, individuals who demonstrate character, academic prowess, physical toughness, and the potential not only to excel at the academy, but also to excel as officers after graduation and likely make a career of the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, or Merchant Marine. A healthy balance of these assets is considered by our admission boards. Cadets and midshipmen are taught by men and women who are top in their field. The ratio of students to teachers is among the lowest in the nation. The primary mission for instructors and professors is classroom teaching. Equipment is state-of-the-art. The unique challenges are unmatched. No other school offers the range of opportunities available at a service academy. In keeping with a famous quote by General Douglas MacArthur, that on the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that on other fields, on other days, will bear the fruits of victory. All cadets and midshipmen are athletes, and every athlete is challenged. The academies share a belief that the competition and teamwork learned on the playing fields reinforce the team spirit needed to get the job done. At the service academies, there is both an officer and undergraduate chain of command. Cadets and midshipmen have a chance to develop and practice personal leadership skills. To be a leader, you must learn to follow. That's why upperclassmen have a great responsibility in training lowerclassmen. It's about becoming a leader who will inspire respect and obedience even under the most trying of circumstances. Our cadets and midshipmen are taught how to keep their heads when things get tough, to make the right decision the first time. They see what is required and make sure it is carried out, learning through their mistakes. The principal rule of conduct is based on honor. Cadets and midshipmen do not lie, cheat, or steal. Just as they learn to use the most advanced technology in the world, these young men and women also develop an inner confidence that keeps them pointed on the path of honor and integrity. In the process, cadets and midshipmen join a long and distinguished line of academy graduates. These graduates inspire on the strength of their vision and the courage of their team. Service Academy graduates excel in every sphere of influence, from general and admiral to government leaders and captains of industry. Some say that much of the history taught at the academies was made by graduates who went before. Our country expects a great deal from our cadets and midshipmen to make them the best in their chosen field. Academy graduates prove worthy of this assessment by the way they perform their postgraduate service opportunities. It all comes down to this. For those who want to reach their potential, they have the help they need to find it.
So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview of the different service academies. And then Jackie, if you'll bring up the slides, we'll go from there.
I'll do that. Just 1 minute.
Awesome, thanks. And if you could just take off the notes pages there at the bottom. Perfect. So as the video shared, this is literally the service academies attract the top students from around the country. And there are very unique opportunities that aren't found anywhere else. So you saw in some of those videos, it was sailing on ships, parachuting, flying airplanes, driving a tank, all of those things that you're not going to experience at any of the other colleges around the country. Building and launching a satellite would be another example. And it's not just the experiences, but what the experiences do for you. So learning how to become a better leader and literally managing stress like nobody else. And I can tell you from my own experiences that commanding combat missions was less stressful than some of the things I experienced at the Air Force Academy because I wasn't prepared yet. But once the Academy got me prepared to handle stress like that, then a combat mission or other things that graduates face don't seem so hard. You graduate as an officer and as a leader, and this experience is, makes you financially independent in terms of the schooling. So tuition, room and board, medical and dental benefits are all paid for by the military. That includes summer programs, overseas travel, all of those things are paid by the military as well. At the same time, cadets and midshipmen, the students at the service academies, are paid for their service. So you will receive a monthly paycheck in addition to having all your benefits paid for. You get this fantastic education, you get everything paid for. What the military asks back is a 5-year service commitment. So after graduation, you owe a minimum of 5 years to serve in the military. And it's also a guaranteed job. So there's, that's a double-sided coin. If you'll go to the next slide. These are some of the admissions requirements, and I'll get into a little bit more detail here in a sec. You have to be a relatively young person, a U.S. citizen, and unmarried with no dependents. There are medical qualifications. And so as part of this process, you'll have a physical exam, and the Department of Defense Medical Examination Review Board will look at your health and decide if you're eligible, if you need a waiver, or so on. There's definitely academic qualifications, grade, ACT, SAT scores are used. High school rank is used if it's available. If your school doesn't rank people, that's okay. And I'll get into a little bit more detail here too. Leadership is very important. So what you're doing is you're taking the opportunities that are provided to you in high school as a leader, whether it be clubs, student government, it might be something you do with your church, something that you do in your community, volunteer work, taking care of a younger sibling at home. All of that counts in that leadership bucket, and it matters. What the academies are looking for is 3 or 4 things with some depth versus joining every club on campus, but not really participating as a leader. There is a physical fitness test, and this is the one thing that you have 100% control over. So as you prepare for your application, you should be doing push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups and running and the other aspects of that candidate fitness assessment. There is drug screening, both in terms of admission and ongoing. So if that's an issue for you, now's the time to know. And then the whole reason we're here is that you need a nomination to go along with your acceptance into the service academy itself, into the school itself. They can be a congressional nomination, like we're talking about here, from the vice president, the president, and there's a few other sources. If you'll go to the next slide. So I mentioned academics. Each service academy is a 4-year program. So what that means is you can't go, if you go to a community college or a regular university beforehand, that's great, but every service academy is 4 years. It's not, I didn't get all my classes, so I'm going to hang out for a 5th year. And it's also not something where you transfer in and maybe only attend it for 2 years. All the graduates earn a Bachelor of Science degree and a commission as an officer, second lieutenant, or an ensign, depending on your service. Like the video said, a strict honor code. When it comes to the core curriculum or the general education part of the academics, the service academies have a very broad core curriculum. So what that means is you end up taking more classes. If you're going to major in engineering, you're still going to take 4 semesters of English and 4 semesters of history, as an example. If you want to major in English, that's great. You're still going to take engineering courses. So that's how that broad core curriculum comes into play. They are small class sizes and typically 12 to 20 students. Now, what's important here is when you look at other colleges, they will say our student to faculty ratio is 15-1. And you'll say, well, gosh, they must be the same as a service academy. The difference here is that this is class size, not just student to faculty ratio. And that's an important distinction, because if you go to a big university like some of them here in town, or University of Michigan or Alabama or whatever, your freshman English class is going to have 200 people in it. At a service academy, it's still only going to have about 20. The instructors at the service academies are the most available of any college around. They will hand out their cell phone number. They will act as mentors to the students. They will tutor you if you've got questions. It's actually quite remarkable how available they are. If you're struggling academically, you just got to ask for help. Next slide, please. It's a military environment. So you're waking up at about 6 o'clock in the morning, or maybe a little earlier. You're going to bed at 11 p.m., maybe a little bit later, because every day has classes, and every other day you're participating in athletics at least every other day, if not every day. You might have clubs, of course, you're studying. And then there are summer programs. So each of the academies has some portion of the summer that is dedicated to learning more about the military. And then some of it is still vacation time or leave. And it advances as you move up from freshman to senior year. All the academies have varsity teams. They have club teams, which would be like one level down, and then intramurals. And everybody, like the video said, plays a sport. And there's plenty of clubs, just like every other college tour you take, where they say, we've got lots of clubs, and if you don't see one you like, you can create your own. Like every college tour you'll ever go on, they will make that statement. It applies here to the service academies as well. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit of a deeper dive into the academics and what it takes to get in. From an SAT perspective, very competitive. ACT would be the same way, somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple of 700s, give or take. maybe 33, 34 on the ACT, and the GPA unweighted is 3.88. And the way the service academies look at GPA is they look at it unweighted, but they give you extra credit for those AP classes and those honors classes that you're taking. So they'll ask for an unweighted GPA, but it doesn't mean that your AP classes are being wasted. They're just sort of looking at it a little bit different way. They care about your leadership because you're going to be a leader in the military. So like I said, these are just some examples of places that you can step up to be a leader, and plenty of them inside of school, plenty of them outside of school. Athletics is the same way. About 3/4 of the folks that attend a service academy are varsity letter winners. And next slide. There are a couple of other alternate routes to becoming an officer. So if for some reason service academy is not right for you, maybe you make that choice, maybe the service academy is going to make that choice for you. You can become an officer through college ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps. There are different scholarships depending on your different services. It could be a full ride to college. It could be something slightly less than that, but they're all great. There are similar requirements to entering the service academies. And a common question I get is like, well, my high school didn't have ROTC, didn't have junior ROTC. Is this going to hold me back? And the answer is no. You don't have to participate in junior ROTC or high school ROTC to get a college ROTC scholarship. There are also prep schools. Army, Air Force, and Navy have their own. Coast Guard and Merchant Marine utilize other prep schools. It is the same application process. So, these are created for candidates who are otherwise strong in terms of character and leadership and extracurricular activities, athletics, but maybe need some academic seasoning. It is not a separate application. So you'll apply to the service academy. You'll go through the review process, and the selection board will decide this person is a good candidate for our prep school. This candidate is a good candidate to directly enter the service academy. So that's how that works. And I think that is the end of my slides. And so I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Emery from the United States Naval Academy to tell us a little bit more about it.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction. As he said, my name is Lieutenant Lyndon Emery. I'm from the admissions office at the Naval Academy. I did not actually attend the Naval Academy. I went to a public school in Virginia, so I can speak to what he said. The class sizes and the faculty stuff is true. When I walked into one of my first English classes, it was me and 300 people, and that was considered a small class. So that's the nice thing about academies. And then I was also, as he was talking about the other ways, I went through officer candidate school, which is a little different than all that stuff. You get your degree on your own, and then you go through a 12-week program. With all that being said, I've been at the Naval Academy in the admissions department for about 2 years. So if you combine that with my 4-day lacrosse camp I did back in 8th grade at the Naval Academy, I'm pretty much an expert on everything you need to know for the admissions. So with that, if you can go to the next slide. So here's just a little bit of by the numbers for the Naval Academy. So 8-to-1 student to faculty ratio, 89% graduation rate. I always like to point out that 11% is very rarely academics. We have all the academic support you would need to get through if you're struggling academically. We don't want academics to be the reason that you're dropping out. As been mentioned, 4-year tuition cost is 0. 100% post-graduation employment. I always like that one. That's a little cheeky. Yeah, you give back your 5-year service in the naval service. That also, we are the academy for the Marine Corps because they fall under the Department of the Navy. So 25% of our students go to the Marine Corps as well. Next slide, please. We're located in Annapolis, Maryland. It's the capital city of Maryland. It's about 25 miles between Baltimore and Washington. As you can see, it's right on the water. So you get some very beautiful views, especially around this time of year. Everything you can want, you can find on campus. You got your barbershop. Midshipman store is a good way to get clothes or school supplies or anything you need. Medical, dental, all that stuff is there, as well as 22 wonderful athletic facilities that are available to our students. Male to female ratio is about 71 to 29%, and we have 4,543 midshipmen currently. Next slide, please. So we have for 26 majors, 2/3 of them fall into that STEM category. We have that core curriculum that he talked about that is very heavily STEM focused. One of the unique things is no matter what, even if you're doing humanities, you graduate with a Bachelor of Science because that core curriculum is so STEM heavy. You get your full tuition, room and board, medical and dental covered, and then the stipend that he was talking about, the monthly pay, starts at about $125 a month, goes up to about $600 a month, depending on your grade level. You might ask why you don't get that full $1,100 a month, and it's because we hold back some of that. When you first get in there, you get a loan. It's an interest-free loan to help pay for school supplies and uniforms. That will be paid off through that withholding some of that money by the time you graduate. And then once you graduate, you're either going to be in the Navy or the Marine Corps. The big things for the Navy are surface warfare officers, aviation. So we have two branches of aviation. We have pilots like myself, and then we have naval flight officers. Pilots fly the planes. Naval flight officers do a lot of the system stuff in the back of the planes. Special warfare, the Navy SEALs and EOD are directly commissioned from the Naval Academy, submarines, and then the Marine Corps as well. We also have a bunch of other smaller jobs that you can go into, but the main ones are those that I just talked about. Next slide, please. These are the 26 majors that we offer, as well as the minors. I always like to point out that it doesn't matter which major you choose to go into. It's not going to pigeonhole you into one job or the other. So you can do what you want, study what you want, and still graduate and go on to the job that you want. Next slide, please. Well, Division I level for sports, for varsity sports, we have navysports.com. Lists all the contact information for all of our coaches. They're very helpful, and you can reach out to them. I can't give you all the information for all the recruiting rules and stuff like that, but if any of those sports interest you, finding the coach's information, they're very good at responding. Then we also offer club and intramural sports as well, varying levels of competitiveness. But as that wonderful video that we watched said, that the camaraderie and the working together is a huge part of the academies. So sports are a huge part as well. Next slide, please. This is a little bit about what the application is going to look like from our point of view. It's what most college applications look like. There's just a few things: the candidate fitness assessment, a nomination, a blue and gold officer interview, and then the Dodmore medical exam review. Blue and gold officer programs are volunteers that they live in your area, so they know your high school. They're assigned by high schools. You'll sit down and ask you some questions, do a small little interview. What that lets us do is we actually get to read those interviews. The admissions board gets to read those interviews, so it's not just a bunch of grades or test scores. We actually get to see what you want to say about yourself and what someone else from an outside perspective has on you. So I always say people tend to be bad about bragging about themselves. Some people find it awkward. That's the best place to find that you can brag about yourself and work on that. So next slide, please. We start with about 16,000 applications every year. The preliminary application just asks 4 basic questions: your age, are you a citizen, do you have any dependents, and are you of good moral character? Those people who answer that successfully become official candidates. We get about 12,000 of those. But by the time they get through all 4 of those different boxes, we only see about 3,400 people competing for appointments. So my biggest advice is to finish your application, because that will make you more competitive. As you can see, if you finish all those things, your competitiveness skyrockets. Next slide, please. And then we bring in about 1,100 people a year directly, and then we have a Naval Academy prep school, which is located in Newport, Rhode Island, that takes about 230 to 250. And then we also have a foundation program, which is 16 civilian military prep schools across the nation that take about 40 or 50. Next slide, please. We have 2 summer programs, one for exposing rising 9th, 10th, and 11th graders to the possibility of a career in the STEM field. And then one, the Naval Academy Summer Seminar, which is rising 12th graders. It's more of a lifestyle to see what it's like to attend a military academy. They both run in June. They both have a tuition, but we have grants and scholarships for those. Next. Basic advice for admissions: as much math and science as you can take in high school. We don't have a minimum GPA, but to strive to be in at least top 20. Send all your scores for SAT and ACT. We do super scores, so just send in all the scores you've taken. If you're not happy, take it again. AP honors, IB courses are encouraged, and then we're looking for that well-rounded individual. Next slide, please. Top 5 reasons to go to the Navy. Number 1, full scholarship, no money down or paid for, guaranteed employment, location right on the water, Annapolis. It's never too hot, never too cold. Leadership and character development, and then the 89% graduation rate. Next slide, please. We have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can text for more information on the 2 summer programs, and those are our 2 websites. Next slide, please. And that's all I have. So I'll pass it on to the next person. Thank you all.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Lieutenant Colonel Greg Gebhardt. I am a Military Academy Liaison Officer and a 2006 graduate of the United States Military Academy. Jackie, do you have my slides?
Yes, we are up and going.
Okay. So thank you for putting up the slides. As I said, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Greg Gebhardt. I appreciate your grace this evening. My wife got called into work this evening, and so I am doing daddy daycare, covering down for my 3 little girls at volleyball practice. So I am taking this phone call from the parking lot of the gym. So I mentioned my name is Greg Gebhardt. I serve as a Military Academy Liaison Officer for the United States Military Academy at West Point. Lieutenant Emery just mentioned blue and gold officers. Those are what the Naval Academy uses to interview and vet candidates locally. At West Point, we call them MALOs, Military Academy Liaison Officers. I've served as one of those for about the last 8 years. And at the top, Jackie or Caroline may have introduced me as Lieutenant Colonel Greg Gebhardt. I still wear the uniform 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year. I command the 105th Engineer Battalion out of Rayford, North Carolina, in the North Carolina Army National Guard. As I said, I graduated from West Point in 2006 by way of West Point's prep school. So I did not take the traditional route that Brian had highlighted at the top of the evening. I was a prior service prepster. So I enlisted in the Army. I went to college for a year, enlisted in the Army after my freshman year of college. And when I got to my first duty station, my commander was a 1996 graduate of the Military Academy. And that's when she introduced me to USMAPS, the United States Military Academy Prep School. I attended there, graduated the prep school in 2002, and then graduated West Point in 2006. So I am not a constituent of Congresswoman Ross's, but I am just outside of her congressional district. My wife and 3 little girls and I live in Holly Springs. So I think 2 years ago we were in the 2nd district, and now we're in North Carolina's 13th congressional district. The district director, the MALO officer that is assigned to Congresswoman Ross's office is coincidentally enough, my prep school classmate, Alexis Jones. Alexis couldn't be on the call this evening. She is celebrating her birthday, but Alexis is the district director for NC2. Next slide, please. A lot of these slides you'll notice have a lot of carryover from what Lieutenant Emery just mentioned. So next slide. All right, here's the United States Military Academy's mission statement. It's to educate, train, and inspire the Corps cadets so that each graduate is a commissioned leader of character, committed to the values of duty, honor, country, and prepared for a career of professional excellence and service to the nation as an officer in the United States Army. So it is our mission to not just train leaders for the military, but to train leaders for the nation. Next slide. And I'm happy to provide a copy of the slide deck. Jackie, if you or Caroline would like to share this with folks, it's more than happy to pass this along. Here's the history of West Point. We are the nation's oldest military academy. You see Navy and Air Force came along sometime after West Point. That is an aerial view of the plane, the large piece of grass there, just to the left of the baseball diamond. And as Brian talked about, every cadet is either a core squad athlete, think Division I athletics, a club sport athlete, which is just a tier below the the Division I varsity athletes, and then intramurals. And you notice that football field at the very top of the picture in the distance. You spend a lot of time between that football field doing intramural sports and then the plane practicing drill and ceremony, because drill and ceremony is a large part of the cadet experience at West Point. Next slide. Brian mentioned it in his video at the top. All the service academies are the best of the best of the best across the nation. These are just some of the rankings where West Point has fallen in recent years compared to the best countries in the school. I will make a selfish plug for my alma mater. You don't see Navy and Air Force on those slides. Next slide. Here's just some of the graduates. In the video that was played at the top, it said much of the history we teach was made by those we taught. These are just some graduates of West Point and their experiences. Dwight Eisenhower, was a 5-star general and the president. You've got Alejandro Villanueva, who got a Silver Star for his actions with the 75th Ranger Regiment in Afghanistan, and then later went on to play and had a very successful career in the NFL. Coach K at Duke locally. You've got Lieutenant General Nadia West, who was the 44th Army Surgeon General. I actually worked with Lieutenant General West when she was a colonel. And then obviously Douglas MacArthur there on the right. Next slide. This was already mentioned in both the video and Lieutenant Emery hit it, but it's a fully funded education and everyone will graduate with a Bachelor of Science degree. And you see a lot of the stuff that's already been mentioned there. Next slide. Next slide. I think Brian mentioned this as well as Lieutenant Emery. You have lots of choices in what you decide to major in at the service academies, and West Point is no different. I can tell you I was an American Legal Studies major, which at any other school would probably be called pre-law. You see it right there in the third column, about halfway down, Law and Legal Studies. That was my major as a cadet, but like everyone else, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science. Again, at any other university, that would be a Bachelor of Arts, but given the engineering regimen that you take, that's why everyone gets a Bachelor of Science. Next slide. Small class size, already been mentioned. One of the unique things about military academies is you will have tons of mentorship opportunity from Army officers, because a majority of them are your professors as well as your tactical officers within the cadet companies in the Corps Cadets. Next slide. Here's just a general overview of a typical schedule. The so what of this slide is your freshman and sophomore years, also referred to as your plebe and yearling years, are pretty much set for you. You don't have a lot of say in those. I will mention, I think they moved it into the yearling year. Forgive me, I don't see it there right now, but I will tell you, when I was a freshman, you do have to take boxing. And so that's one thing that the service academies are great at, is getting you to overcome your fears. And I can't tell you, I look forward to getting punched square in the face in boxing as a freshman. But it happens, and you learn to move on, adapt, and overcome. And but yeah, so you will be challenged both physically and mentally with your academic journey as well. Next slide. Here's the typical day. You get up very early and you go to bed very late, and your day is consumed pretty much from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed. One of the biggest lessons I took away from West Point is West Point knowingly gives you 10 pounds worth of stuff and only gives you a bag that can fit 5 pounds worth of stuff into that bag. And so what I'm saying there is what I learned at the academy was what 5 pounds was most important to put in that bag. And of the 5 pounds that I chose not to put in that bag, why did I choose that 5 pounds? And how could I mitigate the risk of exposure of leaving that 5 pounds out? So all that to say, West Point is going to give you more than 24 hours worth of work every day, knowing full well that you've only got about 18 hours to get that work done. Next slide. Here's all the Division I sports that we have at West Point, much like Air Force and Navy. Coast Guard Academy is a Division III institution when it comes to NCAA athletics. I'm not sure about Merchant Marine Academy, but I believe it is also Division III sports. Next slide. Here's the club sports and a lot of the carryover from the Division I core sports. Next slide. Here's the DCA extracurricular activities. There's a lot on this slide. I get that. The so what is if there is something that you're interested in and that's a hobby of yours, odds are West Point has a club that does exactly that. And if they don't, they will allow you to start that club if you're willing to take on that challenge. Next slide. Here's the 4-year journey. Before you enter your freshman year, you go through a cadet basic training. After your freshman year, before the start of your sophomore year, you do a cadet field training. And then you can just see there's different experiences offered to you the summers after your sophomore year and after your junior year. But all that to say, your summers are planned for you in large part as a cadet. You don't have the freedom to leave campus at the end of the academic year in late May and then just go hang out all summer and show back up in late August. You will have plenty to do to keep you busy. Next slide. So once you graduate from West Point, you will select a branch and then be branched into that branch and conduct that job as a second lieutenant in the Army. As I said at the top, I command the 105th Engineer Battalion in the National Guard. I commissioned engineers, was assigned to, at the time, Fort Bragg, now known as Fort Liberty, and did 6 years on active duty down in Fayetteville, jumping out of airplanes. I deployed to Haiti in 2010 after the devastating earthquake there for about 3 months. And then I deployed all of 2011 to Iraq as a company commander. So you will have the opportunity to choose any of these branches and select or chart the course that you want to take during your time as an Army officer. Next slide. So how do you join the Long Gray Line? Next slide. These are the 4 qualifications there. Brian hit these already, so I'm not going to double tap those. But you see what makes up the process. It's your application, your nomination, and then you have to be medically qualified. So that's what makes up the application process. Next slide. Here's the deadline. Here is how each cadet candidate, their application is weighted. You can see 60% is given to academic, 30% to leadership, and 10 to your fitness. What I will say is the fitness one tends to trip people up the most. And what happens is folks have no problem getting us their grades on time and sharing their leadership experience with West Point. But oftentimes what they do is they think that they're not physically prepared to take the cadet fitness assessment or the candidate fitness assessment. So they put it off to the last minute. And then what happens is they put it off to the last minute. They end up failing the candidate fitness assessment, and then they ask for an extension. I can tell you 100% of the time, you will not get an extension to do your candidate fitness assessment. So do it early, do it often, and just get a score on file. Next slide. Here's the nominations. These have already been spoken about at length. What I will say about this is apply for every nomination you are eligible for. And if you're unsure if you're eligible for it, reach out to the admissions office or to a MALO officer like myself in the area, whether that be Alexis Jones, my classmate who I mentioned earlier, or myself, or any other military academy liaison officer in the greater Wake County community. Reach out to them and ask them, and they will let you know. But again, apply for as many as you are eligible for, and West Point will figure it out on the back end which nomination they give you. Next slide. So here's just the numbers. You can see the breakdown. I think Brian hit the typical candidate score. Again, you're attending a premier leadership institution. It is selfishly, I believe it's the best leadership institution in the world, but you're going to school with the best of the best of the best. You can see how many candidates open an application, vice how many are admitted. What I will say is do not let that discourage you. Do not let that discourage you. Next slide. Summer leader experience. Lieutenant Emery spoke about this. Just like Annapolis, we at West Point also have a summer's leader experience. It's for juniors, rising seniors, if they want to get on the grounds at West Point and get a feel for what life is like as a cadet. They have that opportunity. You can find more about it on the web at usma.edu. Next slide. these are just ways that you can stay connected to West Point. Major Mark Owens is the Southeast Regional Commander for the admissions office. So if you take nothing else away from my presentation, I would write down Major Owens' name, and I would write down his email and his phone number. He is always available to answer questions and is more than happy to do that. Again, he covers the Southeastern United States. And before I hand it off to Dr. Sanborn, I reached out to a cadet that I helped get into West Point a couple years ago today and just said, hey, what are 2 or 3 things that you would want to share with folks that are considering West Point? He said, number one, it requires a lot of sacrifice. So be prepared to make a sacrifice, not just during the admissions process, not just while you're a cadet, but also once you become a lieutenant in the Army. He said sacrifice is at the core of the entire experience. Two of the things he said West Point did for him, it forced him to be a planner. He was a last minute type guy his whole life, but you won't survive at West Point if you fly by the seat of your pants and think that you can get everything done at the last minute. So it taught him to be a deliberate planner and think about where he wants to end up and then backwards plan to what he has to do to get there. And then finally, he said it taught him how to think critically and ask questions. So those were just 3 of his experiences. I'll leave you with what makes West Point different than any other service academy. At the foundation of being an Army officer is leading people. So if you want to stand in front of soldiers, if you want to stand in front of the sons and daughters of America, the best that this nation has to offer, and provide them leadership, guidance, and direction, West Point's the place for you. I appreciate your time this evening, and I will pass it off to, I believe, Dr. Dave Sanborn.
Yeah, this is Dave Sanborn. Thank you very much, Colonel Gebhardt. I appreciate all of your comments. Okay, my name is Dr. David Sanborn. I'm a 1973 graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and I'm going to take you through some of the different pieces of information relative to the Academy. We're located on the North Shore of Long Island, approximately 20 miles outside of New York City. We have an 83-acre campus that's located on the historical Chrysler Estate, and the administration building that you see in the middle there, that big white building, was it's called Wiley Hall now. That was the Chrysler Estate in the day. You'll see the various sailing boats there lined up on the pier because we emphasize a great deal the sailing program at the Academy. Next slide, please. So what is the U.S. Merchant Marine? We are the people that act as officers on board the various and sundry cargo vessels that move freight around the world. Ocean-going merchant vessels, offshore supply vessels, passenger ships, harbor, and ocean-going tugs. These ocean-going vessels consist of container ships, bulk vessels, tankers, roll-on, roll-off, moving cars and automobiles around, cars and vehicles around the world, and then military sea lift command vessels, MSC. During times of war, the Merchant Marine are the primary ways that freight, the material and support equipment gets moved into areas of combat and in support of our various military organizations. Next, please. When you go to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, we have somewhat of a unique program because we are a 4-year program, as all the other academies are. But there's one big difference with us, and that is one of the 4 years you spend at sea. It's called the sea year. I'll talk more about that later. But this creates a very challenging environment during the course of the 4 years, because you're still completing a Bachelor of Science degree. You're receiving a commission in the Armed Forces upon graduation. You get a Merchant Marine officer license, a U.S. Coast Guard license, and experience of a lifetime is the same. I mean, you're going to get the experience of a lifetime at all the academies. There are a couple of differences at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy that I'll go into a little while later. As we talked before, the obligation, you have to serve in the maritime industry for 5 years. You have to maintain your U.S. Coast Guard license for 6 years, and you have to serve in the U.S. Navy Reserve for at least 8 years. If you decide to go active duty upon graduation, I'll talk a little bit more about that later as well, then you have a 5-year obligation that you have to meet. But one of the obligations that you can also go into, or one of the ways you can meet your obligation, is to go into NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. So if you're interested in oceanography, environmental sciences, and things like that, NOAA is a very good opportunity and a very good choice for a lot of people. Next, please. The academic programs, our mission is to graduate Merchant Marine officers. That's our primary goal. And those officers will have the capability, or have the studies for marine transportation. That is the part where people learn how to do navigation and cargo operations on board ships, maritime logistics and security. You'll have an opportunity to learn shipyard management, marine engineering, where you learn the basics of how to run the vessel, the engineering and boiler rooms on the vessels, and marine engineering systems, computer systems, things of that nature. We are, as you've heard already, a Division III school. One of the advantages of that is that our athletes, all of our athletes, get to play. They know there's none of them that are sitting on the bench. There are none of them that are waiting to get into the game, because we recruit some highly skilled athletes from high school. And as I say, with the variety of athletics that we have, people are able to participate. We have a lot of waterfront activities. We have extremely capable sailing programs, and we compete throughout the world on a variety of different regattas and things that go on throughout the sailing environment. A lot of clubs and activities, and again, as with the other academies, if there's a club or an activity that you're interested in but doesn't appear, or it does not exist, then you're able to work to form your own. So a lot of different opportunities. Next, please. The requirements to get into the academy are pretty much the same as the others. We highly encourage you to take pre-calculus, calculus, and physics programs. As you've heard, take the ACT and the SAT as many times as you can. Like all the other academies, we do take into consideration your best scores. We do not have nominations from vice president or president level. Our nominations come from congressional representatives and senators. You have to pass the fitness test, fitness assessment, as you've seen before, and you have to qualify medically. We also use DODMERB as the standard for the fitness assessment. As you can see, the applications open in May, and the deadline is February the 1st. Next, please. I mentioned before the Sea Year program. This is unique to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. 1 year spent at sea. It's an academic requirement. You do a sea project while you're at sea. And what you're doing during that time is you're sailing on merchant ships of all types. When I went to sea, I actually wound up on tugs going up and down the Mississippi River and going to offshore oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. So a lot of different opportunities. The result of this is that the academic program, the academic requirements at the academy are very strenuous because you still have to fulfill within 3 years the requirements for Bachelor of Science degree. So it is not unusual in a trimester to have 24, 26, 28 credit hours because you have to meet the academic requirements for all the basic courses, just as if you were on a 4-year program. Next, please. The options and the opportunities. As I mentioned, our mission is to graduate officers for merchant in the Merchant Marine. The industry right now is in extremely good shape. There are jobs for everyone. If you want to sail on your license, you can sail. I apologize for the bonging in the background. It's 8 o'clock for those who didn't know already. But the academy has been able to make the connectivity with the commercial world out there such that there are plenty of jobs available for everyone who wants to sail on a merchant ship. You don't necessarily have to sail on a U.S. flagged vessel. You can sail on foreign flagged vessels. And as I mentioned, tugs, offshore supply vessels, MSC, and that sort of thing. Next, please. Once you graduate, you can take positions, as I mentioned, on approved merchant vessels, but we have one option that the other academies do not offer. And that is upon graduation, if you want to go active duty in any of the armed forces, you have the ability to decide which branch that you want to go into on active duty. For example, if you graduate and you decide you don't want to sail as a merchant marine officer, but you want to go active duty Navy, you can use your commission and go active duty. You can go active duty Marine Corps. You can go into the Coast Guard, or you can go into any of the other branches, and as I mentioned, including NOAA. Now, if you decide to sail on your merchant on your license, you will have to fulfill your Naval Reserve obligation, as I mentioned before. But if you decide upon graduation that you want to do something as an officer in the armed forces, you can make that choice, and we're the only ones that allow that are allowed to do that for you. Next, please. We will have a chance to answer your questions later. Make sure you populate the Q&A. I just hold it. I'm not finished.
Sorry about that. I'm coming back.
Please.
I'll have to unshare, but you can keep talking. I'm coming back.
Okay. Well, I could keep talking even without the slide. I think I'm still on. One of the things, there are two things I want to emphasize to the people who are on the call. As a student, we look, and you've heard the term well-rounded student used already. What we mean by that is that we're not just looking at academics. We're looking at what you have done in high school. We're looking at your resume. It's very important. The academics are extremely important. You've seen the percentages. but we also want to see students who have done other things, who have excelled in sports, who have worked outside of school, that have been involved in scouting programs. We love to see Eagle Scouts. We love to see the advanced scouting programs that both the women and the men are able to participate in during high school. The other thing that I would also emphasize is make sure you spend time on your essay. We take a hard look at it because we want to see how you write and how you present yourself in the written word. And I caution you, don't use AI to do your essays. Our admissions officers will see through it, and they'll know that you didn't write your own essay. So don't make that mistake. So beyond that, I thank you very much for your time tonight, and look forward to your questions later on. Okay, thank you, Jackie.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sanborn. My name is Second Lieutenant Ella Mangles, and I am an Air Force Academy Admissions Advisor. Wait a moment while the slides get loaded. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So slide, please. All right. So as a second lieutenant, I just graduated myself from the Air Force Academy this June of 2023, and I'm actually waiting on pilot training. So I'm going to be a pilot trainee and go fly helicopters down in Alabama after this assignment, which is very exciting. During my time at the Academy, I got a Bachelor's of Science in Legal Studies with a Spanish minor, and I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia, which isn't too far from here. All this is to say, I loved my Academy experience. I loved my 4 years, and having just been there, I'm happy to answer any questions at all about what cadet life is like now, what clubs and activities there are, involvement, what the day-to-day looks like, all of that good stuff. On the picture on the right is just a little bit about me. I entered the Academy at 17, so that picture is in the top left is me in basic cadet training, which was probably the hardest 6 weeks of my life, but very rewarding in the long term. At the Academy, I got to do some amazing things. I got to solo a plane, jump out of a plane, travel internationally. So overall, I just love my experience, got to do so many things I never expected I'd get to do. And I'm very excited to talk to you all tonight and help you decide if the Air Force Academy is the right fit for you. Slide, please. All right, so this slide is what the Air Force Academy is all about. Just like all the other service academies, we have 3 main pillars: academics, athletics, and military. Those are going to be the foundation of your day-to-day. And then we have this undercurrent over 4 years of building your character, your leadership, and your honor. That's building that whole person concept. We're going to have you we're going to bring in speakers. We're going to have you talking to mentors. You're going to be going to military development classes. All that is baked into your schedule to help you be prepared at the end of the day to be a leader in our Air Force or our Space Force. So in case you weren't aware, the Air Force is also the premier institution right now to commission into the Space Force, and about 10% of our graduates do so. Slide, please. All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about the specific cadet opportunities and experiences that are unique to the Air Force Academy. So just like we have sports teams, we have 27 NCAA sports teams, we have club teams, we have intramurals, we have 31 majors and 20 minors, and amazing world-class facilities. We have all of those things, and we have a lot of the experience that is unique to us as well. So I'm going to focus in on what's unique, as we've already kind of covered the bread and butter of what a service academy is. So with that, you're going to start with basic cadet training, and that's going to be, like I said, it was the hardest 6 weeks of my life, probably. It's where you get paid to get yelled at. We're going to take you in the first 3 weeks, and we're going to convert you from civilian to military. We're going to teach you customs and courtesies. We're going to teach you various Air Force history and give you uniforms and all of that. And then that second couple weeks, we're going to send you down to Jacks Valley, which is on campus, and we're going to play Army. We're going to have you in the mud doing obstacle courses, learning leadership, testing that teamwork that you've developed, all of those amazing things. So definitely a time to remember. Slide, please. And then we're going to have professional military development throughout. One of the coolest things about the Air Force Academy is that air power is the Air Force's mission. So with that, we get some amazing flyovers, and that is a unique cadet experience. We have a bunch of really excited graduates who fly all sorts of aircraft nowadays, and they love to just come fly over the academy, as well as just any aircraft in the area. So you might be sitting in your dorm room, and next thing you know, you hear engine noise. Everyone runs to the window to check it out. You're sitting in class, everyone kind of sighs, you know, you missed it, you didn't get to see it. But definitely one of the coolest parts, coolest features that's unique to us is we have aircraft coming over at pretty much all the time, as well as if you look up a lot of times, if you're down by the airfield, which we have an airfield on base, you're going to see cadets flying planes, cadets jumping out of planes. So pretty cool, unique to the Air Force Academy. Slide, please. All right, and this is that airmanship I talked about, air power being our mission. We have some amazing opportunities to get you off the ground while you're still a cadet. So with that, first we have our Wings of Blue team. That is the Air Force jump team. So they are some amazing individuals who have 300, 400, 500 jumps. They also run our jump program. I mentioned I got to jump out of a plane. My jump master was 20, 21 years old, had hundreds of jumps, and he was the one telling me to get out the door. So pretty cool to have that amount of trust and that amount of experience in someone so young. And that's what you get from that program. Get to face your fears. Powered flight program, that's going to be our like Cessna's single engine planes, get you off the ground, get you some hours with that. Or our soaring program is gliders, so engineless planes. You're going to learn a lot about natural air currents because you got to stay aloft. And we're going to try to get you to solo in 14 flights if you end up taking that program, which is pretty crazy to me. So all those are classes that run during the summer and during the school year. One of the crazy experiences I had was just sitting in my legal research and writing class after jumping out of an airplane. And I was just, you know, you're just jittering from the adrenaline, and you still got to go to class and you still got to listen to a lecture right after that, which is kind of crazy and unique to the Air Force Academy. If you'd like to have your feet on the ground, that is perfectly fine. Flying is not for everyone. We have a cyber team, which does offensive, defensive operations. They have some awesome facilities, as well as our space program. It's pretty incredible. It's a really exciting time to be interested in space right now because the Space Force just got stood up in the end of 2019. We've had there's a lot of development there. We have more satellites run by Academy cadets than some countries have, which is pretty incredible. And we really are involved in what's going on cutting edge. We had Elon Musk come and talk to cadets a year or two ago while I was there, which was pretty incredible, about SpaceX and just what was going on there. So definitely a really great time to be interested in space at the Air Force Academy. Slide, please. We also have some amazing programs that are going to develop you and are competitive if you so choose to go after them. We have a foreign exchange and a service academy exchange. So that's usually the fall of your junior year. We'll send you to another academy, either overseas. Like I had a friend who went to the Japanese Air Force Academy first semester, came back fluent in Japanese. I went to the Coast Guard Academy first semester. So that was a service academy exchange. Pretty incredible opportunity to represent the Air Force there, live a semester with the cadets, doing the same things they're doing, just learn more about the Coast Guard. Definitely a really cool experience there. We also have programs for international travel, a language immersion program and a cultural immersion. Those are usually about 3 weeks, and they usually run over the summer as well. And that's an opportunity to get overseas on the Air Force's dime to work on your language skills or to just immerse yourself in a different culture, which is pretty cool as well. Operation Air Force is a program everyone's going to take before they graduate. For 3 weeks, we're going to send you to an Air Force base and have you shadow a career field that you might be interested in, so you can see what is going on in that career field, what it looks like operationally to do that career, and it will help you when you put in your job preferences to figure out if that's something you want to do. And then we have plenty of summer research opportunities. I have a friend who went to the White House. I know people who have gone and worked for companies over the summer, and by worked for, I mean they just intern, just learning summer research again. All awesome opportunities as well. Slide, please. And then everyone's going to do a survival and evasion program. So if you've ever wanted to eat cactuses and go sit in the woods for a little bit, We're going to teach you some skills there. And you get opportunities as well when you're an upperclassman to serve as cadre for some of these programs, to be the expert, to be the leader on the other side of those programs. And you can also take some summer classes as well. Slide, please. And then we have a whole host of cadet clubs. These are what makes your time, your free time interesting. So there's a lot you have to do on the day-to-day. So when you get to do what you choose to do, choose wisely. Highly recommend as a freshman. It's just going to get you involved. I played club volleyball for 4 years, and it was really a great opportunity to just get down to the court, get away from my studies and everything like that. Highly would recommend. Slide, please. All right, so what does it look like when you graduate and beyond? Slide. So there is about 40 different career options you can go to out of the academy, but out of my class, we had about 50% go to pilot training. So people like me waiting on pilot training right now or starting. We have 10%, so that's about 100 people a year going into the Space Force directly, cross-commissioning. So if you weren't aware, just like the Marine Corps is under the Department of the Navy, but a separate branch, so is the Space Force. So it's under the Department of the Air Force, separate branch. You will commission directly into the Space Force if that's what you apply for and get selected for. As well, we have about 23% go on to fully funded graduate schools. So I have a friend at Columbia right now, Georgetown, Appalachian State, all of them second lieutenants like I am. They're going to do job training afterwards, but they're getting that master's done, taken care of, and paid for, which is pretty incredible. And then 17% will go on to fill any of the other jobs, which slide, please, are listed here. So your service commitment starts at 5 years, as the other academies mentioned. It's more time depending on what career you choose. So if you think about it, the more time and money they spend on training you, the more time you're going to owe back. So for example, as a pilot, I owe a 10-year commitment. That's on the longer side. So that's what these different columns represent, is where it would be 5 years on the right, and then on the left, longer than 5 years. Something else that most people don't know about the Air Force is we do have a special warfare community as well. So if that's something you're interested in, it's something you can do. And then our 5 Space Force careers right now are listed at the bottom. Slide, please. All right, how to apply. I'm going to speed through this because it's very similar, and I think we've hit on all of the core aspects. This is just to show you, we have a lot of people out here to support you. I'm an admissions advisor in that bottom right. I can point you in the right direction if you don't know where to go. My contact information will be at the end, but I'm on the ground covering North Carolina and South Carolina, and my whole role is to mentor you all throughout this process. You're going to have admissions liaison officers, which are just like the MALOs that were mentioned, the blue and gold officers. They fulfill a very similar role. And then admissions counselors who can look at your individual situation, your portal, if you have any technical issues, all that good stuff. So lots of people here to support you and help you through the application. Slide, please. So these are our 5 main criterion, which I'll hit in turn. Slide, please. Academically competitive, we covered this. If you want to see the most up-to-date numbers, it's on our Academy Admissions website, academyadmissions.com. Slide, please. And then physical and medical qualifications. So you're going to take that candidate fitness assessment. Recommendations, you take it at least 2 weeks before it's due. That way, if you get sick or weather it out, you can still reschedule and get that done. And then also make sure you're practicing the timing of those events as they are back to back. So practice them together as you would on the day of your test. And then you're going to go to DOTMERB as well, just like with the other academies. Slide, please. All right, character and leadership. We want to see that you're well-rounded and you're thriving where you're planted. So if you have time, if you're a freshman, sophomore, I recommend trying to challenge yourself to get involved in some things you're passionate about and then really show leadership there. You're a junior, senior, whatever you're already involved in, try to step it up and take on the new challenge of being a little more involved, being a vice president or a captain or something to that extent, just to show that you are trying to excel wherever you're at. And also work on that well-roundedness as well. Slide, please. Finally, we also recommend, like the other academies, that you apply for every nomination source for which you are eligible and compete for all nomination sources for which you're eligible. This is going to give you the best possible shot. It's more chances for you, and your application is going to get looked at again for every nomination you receive. So if you get a nomination, awesome, keep going. get two if you can. You only need one though to actually earn admission to the academy. So one is all you need, but keep competing, do yourself, be as competitive as possible in all of those arenas. Slide, please. And then please, please, please complete your application. Like the other service academies, we have attrition just based on people not finishing their application. And it sounds like a no duh, but if you don't complete your application, we unfortunately cannot consider you for admission of any type, including our preparatory school and our Falcon Foundation scholarships. So these are amazing programs to give you the best chance on reapplying. Also, if this is something that you want, please continue to seek it out. I have a friend who is also an admissions advisor right now. He's also waiting on pilot training and he got in on his third try. So if it's something that you want, make them tell you no, keep pursuing it, be resilient. There are plenty of avenues to get in, and then there are plenty of other options to be an officer as well. Slide, please. All right, so with that, please check out our website, academyadmissions.com. My contact information is here. I'm happy to answer more questions, calls, texts, all acceptable. I'll try to get back to you and point you in the right direction. But I hope this helped give you a little bit of a better picture of the Air Force Academy, and I'm really excited for your questions in this Q&A. So with that, I'll turn it back over. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Second Lieutenant, and all of our other presenters. I don't know about y'all, but I learn something new every time that we do this every year. So we really appreciate that. We have a couple of questions that have already come in, so I'll go ahead and ask those. But also, if you're on, feel free, if you'd like to turn your video on and unmute. I think we're a small enough crowd that you can ask questions if you'd like. I know sometimes people may be a little shy about asking questions, so the ones that are already in the chat, I'll go ahead and ask. But if you'd like to ask a question, feel free to start your video and you can unmute. So the first question is, what is service like at any of the academies after graduation? So Ella, you spoke a little bit to this about what your life is like right now. Maybe do you want to start on this one and talk about what some of your other colleagues are up to right now?
Sure, of course. I'll caveat this with saying, again, I just graduated, so I'm in that first little bit. You do get a period of leave right after graduating. For the Air Force Academy, it's 60 days. So I went on my 60 days of leave, and then I started at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina. And so that was my first station. Basically, right now, my peers are either just starting training or they are waiting for training and filling in other roles at the moment, having just been commissioned, or they're doing that grad school that I mentioned, getting their master's degree, getting that follow-on education. So we prepare you at the academy to be an officer, but we're going to give you technical training afterwards for your specific role. So whether that's going down to intel school or pilot training, all those things, you're going to go to that first, get trained up on your specific career, and then you're going to go out and do that job. So that's where everyone's at right now. I'll turn it over to the other speakers who have been in for longer than I have to talk about what it looks like after that.
Carolyn, this is Dave Sanborn. I'll comment quickly. Typically, after the Merchant Marine Academy, when you sail on your Merchant Marine license, what you're typically doing is sailing 6 months on and 6 months off. And different companies have different approaches. But in my case, after I fulfilled my Naval Reserve duty, I and my family, we lived overseas in a number of different locations, twice in Europe, Latin America. I was on projects in Australia and in Asia. So what we typically wind up doing is getting involved in the industry in a lot of different countries, moving around, both with and without the family, depending upon the circumstances. So after my sea year, I visited 15 countries during my sea year, and then after that, we lived in another 8 or 10 countries overseas for a number of years. So you get a lot of chance to see a lot of very interesting locations and travel around numerous places within the world that you might not otherwise get to see.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sanborn. All right, we'll move to the next question. So are the prep schools only for applicants? Hang on, it got moved. Jackie is on it. So are the prep schools only for applicants who need more academic experience, or are they also for applicants who don't meet the qualifications physically quite yet?
This is Greg, Lieutenant Colonel Gebhardt. As a prepster myself who went to the Military Academy Prep School, I can speak to the way West Point views the prep school. It is strictly for academics. I say strictly for academics. It is also turned into a place that the athletic teams will put young athletes who, again, might not have the grades yet for the academy, but can contribute and add their diverse athletic skills to the Division I athletic program. So all cadet candidates must qualify physically to be considered for admission to West Point or the prep school. So to answer the question, it is strictly for academics, at least from West Point's perspective. I don't know how the other academies do it.
Any others want to speak up for their academies?
Yeah, I can say the Naval Academy is the same. You have to physically qualify off the CFA, so there's not going to be a reason to put you in a prep school unless it's going to be academic for something.
One of the presenters emphasized that, you know, as a junior, senior in high school, you need to continue your athletic training, your athletic programs. You really need to work on making sure, as we, you know, an old way of saying it, you stay in shape, because there are no extensions. There's no you don't get any easy way when it comes to the athletic side, the physical side of things. Prep schools are purely for the academic issues where you might need a little bit more assistance.
Thanks, everyone. So the next question is, if you get a nomination, can you use it for multiple service academies? I think maybe Colonel Doyle could take this one.
Sure. The way that it works here at Congresswoman Ross's process is that you are going to let us know what your first choice is for a service academy, and we're going to rank order folks using all the criteria that we were talking about today to figure out who's number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on for that particular service academy. If there happen to be a bunch of open slots for additional service academy, there might be an option to have people nominated to 2. But generally speaking, you are telling us where you want to go, and we're going to evaluate you against your peers who also want to go to that service academy. It's not like you get one and then you just sort of get to pick wherever you want to apply it.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment, Carolyn. I don't know exactly how Congresswoman Ross handles this in terms of the admissions process. Most of the times, the paperwork, the submission paperwork allows for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 choices, whatever. First, this is my first choice, my second choice, etc. I assume Congresswoman Ross allows for that as well, and we encourage people who are filling out their paperwork to put in their choices, because they may find down the road that they can't get into their first choice for whatever reason, but they may get selected for one of their other choices that could become a very viable alternative for them, instead of just in case they don't get their first choice.
Thank you so much. Colonel Doyle, do you have anything else to add on our process?
No, I think I shared how we handle that.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, next question. How much does Civil Air Patrol matter for admissions, and how much do admissions officers take into account things done in Civil Air Patrol? So rank, national activities attended, leadership within their squadron.
So I can go ahead and start that one. I would say Civil Air Patrol is a great organization. It's one of many that we consider. It's a good way to, it would fall under that character leadership umbrella, that extracurricular umbrella, just like what your job is, if you have a job or if you play sports or if you're involved in your community service, that all kind of falls under the same umbrella. With that, I would say if you have opportunities to do leadership in that organization, please do go after those things. Again, it's kind of the whatever you're involved in, do it to the best of your ability and try to challenge yourself to do more with the things that you're passionate about, because that will definitely show through on your application as a person who has character and has that extra reach.
Thank you so much. So that's all the questions that have been typed into the Q&A. We'll give it another minute if anybody wants to type a question, or if you'd like to ask your question live, feel free to start your video and go ahead and unmute.
I also just wanted to send a reminder out. Look for an email tomorrow with any slides that we're going to share, as well as additional information for the nominations process. We are also recording tonight's event, so we can share it with you. It's a lot of information at one time, so we want to make sure you have everything you need and answer your questions. And then if you still have questions afterwards, feel free to send them over to serviceacademyross@mail.house.gov. I put that in the question and answer. We are happy to find an answer for you if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jackie. Again, that was serviceacademyross@mail.house.gov, or if you just go to the Congresswoman's website, ross.house.gov, you'll see it under, I think, services. You'll find all the information that you need. Feel free to call our office as well and ask Jackie questions. All right, we have one more question. Is there a liaison that we can meet with to help prepare for our interview? It's a great question. I'm sure all of you can answer it. I don't know who wants to go first.
Hey, Caroline, I'll jump at that. This is Greg from West Point. That was actually one of my notes that I wrote down. Yes, there's absolutely folks in your local area that are more than happy and eager to sit down with each one of you who are interested in doing interview prep and answering your questions, looking at your unique file, making recommendations, suggestions. And so the short answer is absolutely. I would just like to piggyback off the last question about Civil Air Patrol. What we tell candidates who apply at West Point is, if you think it might be considered an extracurricular activity, put it on your application, and the admissions officers will either give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down or ask for more information. And I use the example, I worked with a young man years ago who was not involved in extracurricular activities at school, because he came from a single parent household and he had to work a job full-time, well, part-time, but in his full-time hours out of school to help support his family. And he was an assistant manager in that position. So that demonstrates leadership. It wasn't the traditional, varsity athlete who lettered in a sport, but he absolutely exhibited leadership qualities. And that's just one small example. You might think, hey, it's just a part-time job. Put all of that stuff on your application and let the academies tell you, no, that doesn't count. But the short answer is yes, there's absolutely folks in your local area that want to talk to you about the service academies, myself included.
Thank you so much for saying that, Lieutenant Colonel Gebhardt. I don't know if you could see me nodding, but we've talked a lot about that within our own board of admissions. I don't know. Colonel Dole, do you want to add anything about that? We've talked a lot about the more traditional leadership roles, and so we just touched on that. I don't know if you want to speak to maybe something you've seen too that might be a little less traditional for the leadership stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great comment that Greg just made. When we think about leadership, it can be non-traditional. So it can be the standard stuff like clubs at school, student government, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, those sorts of things. But, like we just said, it could be, somebody taking care of two younger siblings while a single parent needs to work a couple of jobs. It could be volunteering in the community. It could be taking care of an elderly neighbor that needs a little extra help. All of those things count And more than just counting, they're great examples of people being, exhibiting great character and stepping up to go do the right thing for people who are less fortunate than themselves. And that is, a lot of what it means to be a military officer, is to look out for those folks who need your attention and need your guidance and need your help. So all of that sort of counts in terms of what we would consider in terms of the nomination process, but also in terms of the service academies themselves.
Thank you so much. And I think, let's see, Jackie, was there one more question?
There was. It was, how would you find their area assigned academy liaison admissions officer? I don't know if anyone wanted to take that, but I was offering, you can reach out to every representative on our call tonight. And you're also welcome to email our office as well so we can connect you.
Thank you, Jackie. Does anyone have any other questions? I'm sure you will have many. If you do, feel free to reach out to our office, as Jackie mentioned, and we can provide contact info for follow-up as well. So thank you all. Yes, go ahead.
I actually have a question. My name is Nathan Murphy. It's kind of more directed towards the Air Force Academy. I want to know how the system worked with working towards being an officer and on the academic side. So were there days sanctioned for that military training, or do they kind of go hand in hand with each other throughout the day?
Yeah, for sure, Nathan. So it's pretty much mixed as you can get. So you're going to wear a uniform every day. That's military. You're probably going to have morning formation 3 days a week. You're going to probably march to lunch 3 days a week. So you're going to go to classes, go to a military formation or a military development block with your squadron, some sort of leadership class, go back to academics, go do some sports, all that kind of thing. So I would say it's very mixed, and it's definitely one of the unique things that you have to deal with at a service academy is balancing all three of those, because it's a lot of competing time and energy. So it's just as we were talking about before with, hey, you've so much you have to do in so little time. It's how do you make that work? Where do you put your priorities? And with that, you do have some say in what kind of extracurriculars you're involved in to fill that extra time and where you want to focus. But for military and academics, those two are definitely staples that you're going to do every day. And those are mandatory as well. So they're very interspersed.
Thank you. We had another question. If you have already started an application for one of the academies, can you still get help with it? I'm going to assume across the board that's a resounding yes. So go ahead and reach out to our office and we can connect you if it's relevant for to connect someone else as well. Any other questions? All right. Well, y'all have been a wonderful audience, and thank you so much to all of our panelists tonight and for all you do. Thank you for your service. It's really important to our country, and we're so grateful for you and for your time and for all you do. So please do reach out to us if you have any questions. Again, it's serviceacademyross@mail.house.gov. Or you can call our office and ask for Jackie, and she will be glad to get back with you and help answer any of your questions. So we look forward to seeing all your applications and answering any other questions. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will talk to you soon. Good luck.